Hey, this is Madeline Sklar.
And Suze Cooper, and you're listening to All Things Audio. And we are live right here on Twitter Spaces, and we are also live over on Clubhouse, which is pretty exciting.
Awesome. Thanks for figuring that out and doing it. Hello, Clubhouse listeners.
Well, I'm not sure that I have figured it out yet, but we're doing it live. So anything could happen in the next 50 or so minutes. It is the reason why I was a few minutes late pressing the button, because my brain is trying to get with the fact that I had to do Clubhouse on Club Deck, which is on a screen, had to do Twitter Spaces from the phone, and I'm also making sure that I'm recording this for the podcast. So I've got Audition open in front of me, recording it. How I'm going to be able to see the tweets in a moment, I'm going to have to switch screens. Now, that could be a real moment, Madeline. Our All Things Audio stuff for today actually starts with a bit of a throwback. We are talking about the Spaces tab, Madeline. Sajjad noticed earlier today that Twitter had reversed back to the first Spaces tab, not the multi-tab version, but the one that kind of split out the spaces that were happening, that were scheduled and recording. Now, Sajjad's over on Android. I've had a little look, at first I couldn't see the Spaces tab. I still have the audio tab. What are you seeing at the moment, Madeline?
I still see the audio tab that I've had for quite a while. I'm not seeing anything different. It did not revert back to one of the older versions. I have what's been the most current version. So this is interesting, though. But we also know that it's a reduced staff at Twitter. So it's making me wonder, how is this being managed right now? What kind of choices are they making?
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I was really interested in this tweet was just the fact that, we've had very, very little come through about Spaces. We know that they've got very few people working behind the scenes on it at the moment. So for suddenly something like this to change over made me think, oh, who's pushed a button there and why? We've reverted back to a tab that doesn't include the podcasts, which is what Sajjad's saying. And certainly I've got an iPhone, and I've got on the Twitter account, Big Tent Social, which I'm on at the moment, I do see that audio tab with the pre-populated podcast lists, and the one that they were basically trialing, weren't they? They hadn't really said one way or the other whether or not this was what it was really going to be like. And there's lots wrong with it in terms of not having searchability. It's very strange. It does autoplay on these random podcast episodes that no one's really asked for, and all that kind of thing. But then on one of my old accounts, I went back into that today on the same iPhone, and I do in fact have the old Spaces tab back over there. So it's quite strange. Someone somewhere has pressed a button, which is interesting. Someone's thinking about Spaces somewhere.
You have that tweet with your screenshot showing a real, in the Spaces spotlight, and it's an old one from last month from Huffington Post. And I have the same exact one when I'm in the Spaces tab, and it's old. And usually these things would cycle out every day to something new that's coming out or something that just happened. So it's really frustrating that it's been abandoned.
Yeah, I mean, Morgan actually brought this to my attention. So yeah, there's a Huffpost space that has been in the Spaces spotlight. As far as I can tell, it went live on October the 12th. So it's obviously been there around, a month or more. It does have 94.4 thousand listens, but then it has been in the spotlight for a really, really long time, and hasn't changed. And yet clearly that was being manually curated, and there's now no one there to do that, which is sad. But yeah, so that space is almost like stuck in space, quite literally.
Yeah, space stuck in space. That's a great way of putting it. It's hard to have a lot of confidence in Twitter with everything going on, but we thought Spaces was a little bit more secure. But seeing that the curation is being abandoned is troublesome for sure. And that's why I'm glad we're simulcasting in Clubhouse. And it's making me want to really spend a little bit more time in Clubhouse, kind of revisit it from where I was 2 years ago when I first got invited in. And then even on LinkedIn, I know we're going to spotlight a thing that I found in LinkedIn, a LinkedIn audio that was interesting, but I actually went into the comments from that particular audio, and replied to LinkedIn Help saying, if you guys just start recording and have replays available, I would be spending way more time doing LinkedIn Live audio.
That was one of the great things about that old Spaces tab, wasn't it? And I can't believe we're saying that there are great things about the old Spaces tab, because at the time we had a lot to grumble about it.
We sure did.
I feel quite bad now. I'm being very humbled by this. Like looking at it on my other account earlier and being able to just scroll through those different spaces and see what was live, what was coming up, what was a replay. I suddenly thought, this has opened it up. This is perfect now. When in fact at the time we were sort of saying, well, this isn't organised very well and it could be a lot better, it could be a better UI and it's not very pretty. But actually, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. I mean, give us the audio tab and we're all suddenly thinking, oh my goodness, we're totally lost without what we had before. But you're right, it's an easy way to kind of go back and get those replays. And if LinkedIn had that recording capability, I think a lot more people would be thinking about doing that over there. Yeah.
I think so, because especially people like us that are using Spaces for educational purposes. We come on here and we use it to educate. And same thing with my other 2 rooms over in Spaces that I'm doing every week. They're very educational. And sometimes I think, shouldn't I be doing this over in LinkedIn? It seems like that would be a really appropriate audience over there. Because it's more of a business crowd. And I would think this is the kind of content they're looking for. But not being able to record, not being able to have a replay. I get really frustrated when I see cool live audio events in LinkedIn, but I can't be there live. And I think that's a dilemma for many of us, especially if there's a great one that's happening halfway across the world and just due to a time zone, you can't make it. And I think they really lose out. And I saw other people had requested that in the thread I was in, and LinkedIn Help was like, we appreciate you requesting. I mean, it was very vague. It wasn't like, oh yes, this is a feature we get lots of requests and we plan to do it. It was more like, yeah, thank you, but we're not doing it. That was my takeaway from it. So frustrating. I thought maybe if more people reach out to the LinkedIn Help and voice their opinion about the importance of having recordings and replays over there, maybe they would take it more seriously.
Yeah, I think you're right. Although as at least we understand why Spaces is so stagnant over here and why it's quite likely to not move. I was going to say very quickly, but if at all, in kind of over the coming weeks and months. Other than the fact that obviously we're concerned it might disappear altogether, because perhaps it would be quicker just to hit the button and kill it off than to put the energy back behind it. But I don't understand why LinkedIn is still standstill. There seems to me no reason why that platform shouldn't really be running with it. At first I considered perhaps it's just the fact that there's so many users on LinkedIn. Obviously, when you're adding audio onto a platform that already has so many users, you don't want to be introducing a feature that's going to pull the whole thing down. And so perhaps that rollout was going out slowly. But at this point, it is literally so slow it's not moving. And we're not hearing any more about, whether or not there will be features like replay or recording, or whether that's something they're just not even looking into doing. There's been such silence, radio silence from the LinkedIn teams that are behind it, that it's really difficult to understand what their direction is with it.
Yeah, I think if they were smart, they would really start putting more resources into the audio feature. With everything going on with Twitter right now, Spaces could go away tomorrow. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. And how frustrating would that be? We have such a great time coming here every week. We've been doing this show for a long time now. We turn it into a podcast. We'll just go to Clubhouse, no problem. But you would think that some of these other platforms would be looking at what's happening at Twitter as, hey, here's an opportunity. We could just kind of give people what they want and have more users.
Yeah, and the replays is really where, that's where podcast and social audio collide, right? Because with a replay, that's where it becomes a podcast. You've had that moment where you could interact if you were able to be there live, But just like a podcast, if you're able to go back to the replay and listen whenever you like on demand, that's when it becomes the podcast version. So I think that's what they're kind of missing out on, and that's one of the reasons why podcasts are so popular is that people can choose when and where they listen to them. They can pick that topic that they want to hear about from that person, and they can listen to it on the train while they're doing the washing up, while they're getting the kids from school, etc., etc. And actually, that's what you can do with the replays on these social audio platforms as well. So that is the big where they're missing the trick, I think, with the replay audience.
Absolutely. And, there's one more piece of news from Twitter we want to share. Some of y'all may have seen this. Elon Musk has put together this outline of like this roadmap for Twitter 2.0. It was like a slide deck, and he had shared some tweets about it. And sadly, there was not one mention of spaces in this. They're talking about some new things, encrypted DMs, long form tweets, and they make it sound like this was something that wasn't even being planned. But I've seen tweets showing that people on the Twitter team years ago were looking into like trying to build encrypted DMs, more with long form tweets. Some of these things that we're hearing about now has actually been in the works for quite some time, but I didn't see anything about spaces. Isn't that a little concerning, Suze?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this covers things like video and payments and all those other things that we've heard about, but nowhere on here is there a mention of audio. And, as we were talking about at the top of this show, the audio tab was a thing that was in beta, that was very much a live project, something everybody seemed to be, working towards and thinking about creatively and really moving with. And yet audio gets no mention whatsoever in this roadmap for Twitter 2.0. So, yeah, it again is kind of another moment where you sort of think, oh, how long is this audio going to be hanging around here on Twitter? It's absolutely the reason why we're simulcasting, while we're trying to, see whether or not we can be heard over on Clubhouse, and potentially I'll have a go and see whether or not we can simulcast to LinkedIn another time as well. Because, as we've said at the end of each of these shows over the last month or so, we hopefully see you or hear you from here next week. But we just don't know, because they could just as easily pull the rug as suddenly fire it all up again, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody should not be surprised if all of a sudden next week we're not hearing spaces. It could happen. It could happen to any of these platforms. They're all free. As you always hear about where the product. So, the metrics, the advertising, all that stuff. Some of these other features is not nearly as important to them as we think it is. And it could go away tomorrow. So it doesn't hurt to be kind of thinking ahead and having a plan B, a plan C. I mean, you and I have been talking for a few weeks now that, we want to start looking into Clubhouse, and you talked about simulcasting, which I think is an excellent idea. And who knows, this show may become 100% on Clubhouse at some point. We don't know yet. We just don't know we love Twitter. We love spaces, but things could change in an instant. So I don't want people to be super surprised. The good thing is, if something happens, just find me online. Since I have an unusual name, I'm very easy to find. Just MadelineSclar.com, Madeline Sclar at Gmail, Madeline Sclar on any social media. I'm even Madeline Sclar on Clubhouse. I can be found. So just keep an eye out for me, and we'll make sure that we don't lose you. But it's also a reminder that when it comes to marketing your business, your podcast, whatever it is you do for business, try to get people to join your email list. Because if one of these social media platforms goes away tomorrow, you can still get your message to them through your email list. So you can always go to my site, MadelineSclar.com, sign up for my email list there. So we have this tweet that I'm sharing in the nest here from LinkedIn. I just found this to be so interesting because, we've talked about LinkedIn Live Audio quite a bit over the course of it being around for a year or so, maybe not even a year. But we're like, okay, it's not really being promoted much by LinkedIn. You got people who do not work for LinkedIn that have taken charge to kind of do their own town hall meetings and help people learn more about LinkedIn Live Audio. But then I see this tweet from Tristan Griffiths with, I missed it, this live conversation, but it had Richard Branson. And I'm like, okay, big name. That's awesome. That's what you need for more people to get exposed to these social audio platforms. I'm sure before Elon Musk did that Q&A for Twitter advertisers a few weeks ago, I'm sure plenty of people that tuned in weren't really that familiar with Twitter Spaces prior to that. But they had like 2 million listens in the first 24 hours, which was huge. And I think that gave it a big boost. Wouldn't you agree, Suze? Like just him coming on and using it for an hour was a huge boost to the power of Spaces. And we've talked about that here. Like that really showcased the power of social audio. So I think same thing here. Having a big name like Richard Branson, having a live conversation with the editor-in-chief VP at LinkedIn. I got so excited when I saw that, Suze, because we've said countless times here that there doesn't seem to be anybody at LinkedIn who is trying to help people and support people with the live audio. With Spaces, it's been almost 2 years Spaces has been out, and we've had tremendous support from up until now, of course, because there's really nobody left on the Spaces team, but we've had so much support from the Spaces team where they would do the weekly Q&As. They would reach out to us and ask us, what can we do to make this better? They were always listening, and you always felt so supported by people at Twitter trying to make this a better feature for us. But LinkedIn is like nothing. But then to see that several days ago, they hosted this live conversation with a VP at LinkedIn and Richard Branson. What are your thoughts on that? Because that sounds to me like, okay, LinkedIn is maybe finally getting interested in really being more front and center and showcasing the power of LinkedIn Live Audio.
I think I might have been more excited that it was Daniel Roth on there than it was Richard Branson. I was like, at last, it's someone from LinkedIn on LinkedIn Live Audio.
Right.
I liked that. You know, that's what, as a social audio geek, that's what I've been looking for. So I was happy to see that. I would love to go back and listen to that. But as we've just said, that's highly unlikely to be available to me. I think it's great. I think, you know, they Tristan's tweet here, he's put on there, LinkedIn is the thoughtful person's platform filled with great thinkers, which is, you know, what they've sort of said about LinkedIn audio. You know, who better to have on there than Richard Branson, really, if you're going to want to shout about something. So yeah, I think it's great. I can see Michael de Groot, you're here in the space over on Twitter Spaces. Hello. I have invited Michael along today because I was hoping that we'll have some time towards the end just to chat to Michael about what he's been doing over on LinkedIn, because he has been regularly going live over there. So yeah, once the mics are open, I'm looking forward to having a chat with Michael as well.
Yeah. And then you have some news you uncovered about Fireside and Mark Cuban.
Yeah, so Fireside is going to launch on Smart TVs. So Fireside is one of the social audio platforms that we spoke about way back when Spaces first launched, really. It was a phone app and then it was available on desktop. They were very picky about who they had as hosts over there. You had to go through a really rigorous screening process to become a host over there. They very much curated the content. And now it would appear that they've bought Streamium, which gives them access to Amazon Fire TV and Roku. So what this means is that basically people will be able to interact using Fireside on a smart TV, which is pretty cool. Now, what I hadn't realised in the space since we've spoken about Fireside last is that Fireside has actually added video capabilities. So it went from being social audio and very much like you would log in and it was like a studio. It was a bit like one of these online remote studio platforms where you might do like a podcast recording. You had your own little studio area, you had buttons where you could load in your own sounds and all that kind of thing. But they've actually added a video layer to that. So when we're talking about them being on smart TVs, we're literally talking about you being able to see them and hear them and interact. So yeah, it's it's a big deal, really, for what was one of the social audio apps to have this capability. It is the one that's run by Mark Cuban. He's clearly invested and brought Streamium, which has given him this access. But yeah, what a way to go! It's not something I would have considered social audio moving into.
Yeah, I find it super interesting, and I'm definitely going to keep an eye on this. And Mark Cuban's doing really cool things. So I'm always impressed with some of the different things he gets into. And I had some interest in Fireside when it first came out. I played around in it. I thought it was interesting, but there were so few people on it. And interesting that you and some other people in one of our DM groups were talking about how difficult it was to become a content creator in there. Whereas with me, I just didn't get a chance to respond to y'all yet, but they were really pursuing me hard. I just didn't have the time to do it. And I even have, it's Mark Cuban. He's a co-founder along with, I can't think of her name, the lady that's also the co-founder. I was getting emails from her. So I don't know if it's possible. I have a couple of colleagues that were really big with Fireside, and it could be that they were trying to get them to bring me on, they were pitching me to the people in charge there, possibly. I don't know, but boy, they were not giving up for a while. I mean, it was a lot of emails, and I was kind of like, thanks, but no thanks. I got enough on my plate at the moment. So interesting. I wonder if it helps to have somebody who's already a creator over there and they put in a good word for you, or who knows, maybe they've been asking popular creators like, hey, do you know other creators like yourself that we should reach out to? Or if they're just looking for people who have a certain number of followers on other social media platforms. I don't know what their criteria was with this, but I was just surprised that there are other creators out there that are trying to get in and want to use it, and they're not able to.
I think it's just a case that they knew who they wanted on there. I think they knew, yeah, as you've said, they wanted people whose content they could be confident of the quality of. So they wanted content creators they'd already heard of. And I think that's what they were looking for. The process to apply was a really hefty online form, along with, examples and uploading audio, all this kind of thing. It was really quite a rigorous process, and I didn't mind going through that, and I didn't even mind not being selected, because had I been selected, a bit like you, I'm not sure I really had the time, but I was happy to go through the form and see what happened. I'm always up for an opportunity in audio, and I wanted to kind of understand their process, but I didn't even get a thanks for applying, which after spending half a day filling out their form, I did feel like was a bit rotten. But yeah, it was, I think they just knew who they wanted on the platform, and that's what they've run with.
It could very well be. That makes sense.
I just want to mention as well that while we've been chatting, Jennifer Navarrete has put into the live chat about Facebook live audio rooms. And I just wanted to mention this while we bring some people up. So live audio rooms are being removed from Facebook tomorrow, she says. So it seems like the shine has dulled on social audio as far as social media platforms are concerned. I mean, that's a really interesting statement, isn't it? Is it just that the standalone apps like Clubhouse, like Wisdom, like Fireside, are they the ones really that are going to take this and run with it? And is it not the add-on to social media that's really going to see it boom? That's a really interesting statement.
It's awesome. Hey, Bez.
Hey, how are you guys doing? Pretty cool to see your multi casting. So I'll and I know Jennifer put something in about how she does or preserves the audio on LinkedIn. She says she streams it live to her profile. So I put in there, hey, what tool do you use? So hopefully she'll respond. But two things, LinkedIn audio. I noticed that in talking to some of the creators that were chosen on the LinkedIn audio when they were rolling it out, they have made many recommendations, and a lot of these people came from Clubhouse and even Twitter, and they had, they chose like 100 people or so, and they got pretty frustrated because there wasn't any movement on some of the things they were requesting, even some basic stuff, And so I don't see as much activity anymore like I used to on LinkedIn Audio. Even though it's just, because they do it through the LinkedIn Audio events, it's got some powerful features that it can work in your favor. So yeah, you guys were talking about some of the rudimentary stuff and what it doesn't have. So I feel you, and a lot of the creators they pretty much who were in the program for as they were doing the beta rollout of it, just I think gave up. I mean, they'll still run some shows there, but they're moving really slow. And like you said, Madeline, I think it's an opportunity for LinkedIn because people are really questioning whether Twitter is going to keep moving forward with Twitter Spaces. And I don't know about you, but I'm losing. I don't have a lot of followers, but I'm losing a few here and there. And then when I go check, it's like people have deleted the apps. And when I do, like, why did they unfollow? And so it's interesting. I didn't know. I knew there was a lot of people, but I just didn't really know to the extent. So, and then the second thing I wanted to really go into was I have noticed some people here on Twitter Spaces, they're looking at options, and like Keith Keller, um, it's interesting that he's found Discord and he's taking his audience. He does one show a week on a Monday night, and he's taking that show uh, um, and he's been experimenting with Discord and with some of us, and he's super excited, and because he's sort of just found Discord, and I've heard other people too, like you said, they're taking the platform or their users somewhere else because they've realized, hey, we're on rented land, and even Discord's rented land, but they're being now like, hey, maybe we should have been paying more attention to this a long time ago, some of the basics. But yeah, some people are gonna take, and even if Twitter Spaces stays around, like what Keith has been telling us, he goes, he's just he's not he's just sort of now found a new love. So anyways, I just wanted to just pitch in on those two things.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your thoughts. Appreciate it. Michael DeGroot, great to see you here with us. How are you?
I'm great. Great conversation as usual. Thank you. And I concur, the whole LinkedIn saga they're not moving very fast on anything. But I decided to just stick with it for now, even though I don't have a record feature. Some people are saying, oh, we record via Zoom, and then they stream it from Zoom to LinkedIn Live, and that's how they kind of get around it. But to be honest, I don't want to start recording through a back channel somehow without people knowing that they're being recorded. So yeah, whatever is talked about, I have now I started doing it weekly. I now do it fortnightly, social audio community chat. I thought I'd try and get the conversation going about LinkedIn audio, maybe other platforms that people are experimenting with, and see what we can bring to LinkedIn audio. And it has developed in some lovely people attending every time, a bit like yours. And people are definitely learning. There was one lady, Laurie Shostrom, in Ireland. She's actually American, but she lives in Ireland. And she decided on the back of our weekly chat, she decided to do a 3-week challenge of doing a social audio on LinkedIn or LinkedIn audio every single day with somebody, which was incredible. So I'm enjoying it, but yeah, I can't record anything, and that's disappointing. So instead of doing it weekly, I'm doing it fortnightly. But Robert Hanna, in his last town hall, said, I will not do another town hall until LinkedIn delivers on some of the things that we've asked for. That was that strong. And he hasn't.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I wondered whether Rob was still doing things. Obviously, we had him over here on All Things Audio a few months ago now. But it is definitely, there's a core group over on LinkedIn that are regularly going live and still obviously seeing a value in using the social audio feature over there. I mean, obviously we've seen that space earlier today where there was someone quite high up in LinkedIn on a LinkedIn audio event. Michael, that really is still a rarity, right? I mean, that's not something that's happening every day.
So I saw last week, leading up to Thanksgiving, there is a fairly big hitter in the finance industry, Ariel Serber, I think it is. And he was interviewing another big hitter in some corporate, talking about what can we be grateful for. And they had a lot of people. But the stats are really weird. And the good thing about LinkedIn is you can invite people to an event. You can, once they're accepted it, you can message them direct and send them reminders. There are a lot of pluses on there. And so once you join a big event that's got 500 people in it or whatever, then you could literally message everybody that's joined that group directly without any barrier. Now, that's also bad because I've noticed on some of mine leading up to it, so I'm doing one tomorrow, it's got about 20 people also signed up to it. But by tomorrow, when I go live, there will be about 50 or 60, even 80 people signed up. And they're all over the world in strange places in Africa, India, Vietnam, some weird places. But these people don't come on, they just signed up to it. So they can message each other directly or something. I don't know. There's some sort of back channel chat going on. I haven't got a clue. So there's some weird stuff going on, but there are some plus points as well.
Yeah, I'm just amazed that you're still doing it regularly over there without any input from LinkedIn or understanding as to what their direction is, as I said earlier. I mean, what do you think of this comment that Jennifer's made around, like, is social audio on social media platforms its future, or do you think that it might be that it ends up being a standalone thing that just doesn't fit in well with social media?
With LinkedIn, I agree. The comment I just got in when I heard your comment talking about the fact that they've already got an audience, they've already got millions of users, and you're just tagging another product onto it. And when I compared how many LinkedIn lives were happening and how many attendees were going to that, compared to some of the social audio events are there, it's like night and day. LinkedIn Live, that didn't exist for a very long time, is really, really popular. So it's inevitable that audio will become more popular as well. That's my own personal opinion. So I'm just kind of sticking with it and seeing how it develops. And I want to just keep having a go at it. I might get bored, I don't know, but I've changed from weekly to fortnightly already. So maybe I'll move to monthly. But one of the things I want to do is I want to help, because I have a podcast, I want to help some people, feature some people in a audio chat that have a podcast episode, and I do promote that heavily on LinkedIn. But I do believe LinkedIn audio will stay because they already have been very successful with LinkedIn Live.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they've dished out their creator fund recently, haven't they? There's quite a few people that I follow and over there that I'm connected with have been lucky enough to be named, in this creator fund list, and they're obviously being given different tasks to do. I can see the posts, like everybody's done a post about, where their career journey, and everyone's done a post about how, it relates personally to them. I can see 2 or 3 people that I follow are doing the same thing. So I'm thinking, yeah, that must all be part of the program. And they're getting training and things. And I wondered whether or not that was part of it. Maybe there will be a point at which in that Creator Fund training where LinkedIn goes, and look, we've got audio and you can use it in these different ways. Now go and spin up live LinkedIn audio events and tell people about them, and perhaps that they would use them, those creators, as ambassadors for the feature. I mean, in my head, that would work. I don't know whether or not that's really what's happening. Perhaps I should connect deeper with some of these people that I'm seeing posting this stuff and see whether or not they're being told anything about the audio feature. But it seems like they're spending a lot more time building up those creators at the moment than actually pushing out what the tools are that are available for the creators to use. So maybe that comes next. I don't know. Maybe that's early 2023 kind of vision. Who knows? But that, in my head, that would work. Hey, Bez.
Yes, and they did do another round of creators that they chose. So it's already been kicked off, another 3-month segment, and so there's a bunch of new ones. I think LinkedIn Audio will stay around, and what makes it really nice is with the integration LinkedIn events, where if you give it enough time, they'll even send reminders for you, and and then you can send up to 1,000. Invitations, and whoever joins, like your co-host, can also send. And I believe when I was testing it, even if you are a attending, you could send out 1,000 invites yourself as an attendee, once you register. So it really can be amplified. Let's say you have a small group of people, and I did send out 1,000 invites once. It took me 3 days because, I could probably only do about 300, in a day in the time that I had. But, when I did one, I had like, a whole bunch of people registered, but and I can't remember what, but the net result was about 30 to 40 people. And then eventually, after half an hour, I would see a drop off because, I would do it at lunch, a little bit of a drop off, but it was 30 to 40. And then about at the half an hour mark, it stayed between 25 and 30, with 25 being about pretty constant till the very end. So I like it. Microsoft's behind it. And it's part of their creator mode. So there's like newsletter, LinkedIn Live, LinkedIn Audio, and can't remember what's the fourth thing, but there's 4 things. So once you turn it on and you meet the very low minimum requirements, all of a sudden you have access to a whole suite of things. And plus they rolled out another creator program. So I think it'll be around. Hopefully it'll get better. And yeah, Robert Hanna, that's who I was sort of talking about, among others, in that first group. They're pretty frustrated, but LinkedIn has always been a laggard. They've been always the last or very slow. They've never been at the forefront of anything. So that's sort of my experience since 2006, 2007 with LinkedIn.
I just want to respond to another comment from the chat, this one from D. They're saying, I think it's imperative creators and hosts do not abandon Twitter Spaces prematurely, but rather continue to demonstrate its value to generate public town square conversations. I think what I really want to say is we are not going anywhere. We are only going somewhere from Spaces if Spaces disappears, right, Madeline? I mean, we have no plan to leave Twitter Spaces. Certainly the experiment today with the simulcast over on Clubhouse, what that's kind of doing for us is almost expanding what we do and potentially, being a space that talks about social audio. It's good to try these things and be in the other places that we talk about as well. So potentially we should have done this earlier anyway. But absolutely, we're not planning on leaving Spaces. We will be here till the bitter end. It's just if Spaces leaves us, that's the issue that we're thinking of, right, Madeline?
Yes, that was a great way of putting it, in case Spaces leaves us. Yeah, we're just trying to plan ahead because we enjoy doing this every week. We love talking about social audio. We made Spaces our home for this, but we do record it as a podcast. So there's another way to get access to this. But we love doing this live because we love the interaction with you all. That's what I think. Because, we could certainly record this as a podcast and then put it out. But this has been amazing to build a community through a live social audio platform. So one way or another, we will continue to do social audio. We just prefer Spaces.
And there's no doubt about it. Like the pace and energy of the audio that we create because it's live wouldn't be there if we just caught up on Riverside or Squadcast or something and chatted with each other about these social audio stories. The fact that it is live, okay, I edit it down slightly, but I think that's what gives it its tone and its pace. And I wouldn't want to do it any other way.
Agreed. I'm the same way. I like doing live events because I just definitely feed off the energy of the room. So I've always been a big fan of live streaming back in the day. And then with social audio these past 2 years, I just love the power of connecting with so many people in real time. There's just something really special about that. Thank you to all of our speakers who came on and shared so much great stuff. And we're available in all of your favorite podcast apps. We're out there, All Things Audio. You can also go to allthingsaudiopodcast.com as well.
You certainly can. And you can catch us here on Twitter and use the hashtag AllThingsAudio, and we'll pick that up throughout the week. So that's it for this week. But thank you so much to everyone that's been here in the space with us and those of you listening. And we'll catch up with you next week.
Bye, everybody.